All right, I think this is gonna work. If this doesn't work, it's fucking over. Hey guys, does this work? Are we live? I think I think we're live. All right, cool. What's up, guys? I'm super sorry. This is what happens when I have to do tech stuff. So anyway, thank you everyone for being here. Super excited to potentially help a lot of you on your journey that are looking to become a pro or turn poker into a side hustle and just learn about, you know, the process, the experience, bankroll management. My guest today is Jake. Jake reached out to me on Instagram with a very candid DM, just like, hey man, look, this is where I'm at on my journey, looking for help, any advice? And I was like, hey, instead of, me giving you a voice message on Instagram or obviously more than I could type in a chat, why don't you hop on my YouTube live and ask me anything you want and I'll syndicate it, knowing that a lot of people have the same types of questions that you have, and hopefully it'll help other people on their journey. So Jake, thanks for being here. I really appreciate you doing this. I know you're on the spot, being in front of other people, but we're just going to have a chat, me and you, man. Why don't you tell others where you're at on your poker journey and obviously some questions you have, but give us a little context about where you're at right now so people kind of have an idea of this transition you're looking to make. And, of course, then lead in with a question and we'll just have a nice chat.
Okay, so first off, thank you very much for inviting me on the show. It's just awesome. As of now, it's the first step along this journey, but me right now, so I'm at Virginia Tech, freshman, from originally from Pennsylvania, like 30 minutes outside of Philly. And a year ago during Christmas, we got together as a family. We played poker, and after playing that game, I really just fell in love with the game, and I started to just play, and I got all my friends into it, and I just really fell in love with it. And I've just been consistently playing throughout this past year. It was actually January of 2022 when I started, and really I've seen like a lot of improvement in my game. I've seen I definitely have an edge on my friends just because I've been studying, watching more videos. I have a book I'm reading right now. So really, I just want to know how you did it, and I want to know how I can kind of follow in those same footsteps.
Yeah, I mean, so I guess like starting off, like what are your main goals, right? Like that's kind of the first thing I always tell clients and to think about and to have an idea about is just like, what does success mean to you and where exactly are you trying to take this? Because then I feel like the easiest process is sort of to reverse engineer from there and figure out like what the next best steps are to get you to where you're trying to go. So what would you say, success really means for you right now?
Well, success, so my main goal, and I've been thinking about this for a while now, it's a little bit of a stretch, but eventually I do want to obtain a WSOP bracelet. I think that's kind of like the main goal, kind of like long term, but short term is to just kind of transition poker into a lifestyle, like working job, and just being able to like kind of live that lifestyle and travel.
Yeah, that was cool, man. That's where I started in my career too. I always said when I was in college, like if I could basically just travel and have poker pay for it, even if I didn't make any money, if I just broke even and was able to have poker pay for my lifestyle, that would be already a win to me. And then it never really, I mean, of course I thought maybe I could make more money doing this. I could do better than break even, but I never thought necessarily poker would take me to where I am today. So that's super cool. I could totally relate to that. Okay. So, I mean, the first step would be just like, where are you kind of at right now? Like where is your starting point? And I don't, obviously the more specific, you get the better, but at the same time, I understand we're on air. So if you don't want to share like super specifics, like with your bankroll, whatever, that's fine. But, kind of like how much free time do you have? Are you working? What stakes and games are you playing? And then we could kind of try and figure out like how much you need to make in order to get to this sort of goal and what some good next steps are. So give me a little bit more context.
So currently, I started out when I started playing in January. We started just with normal $20 blinds, nothing crazy. We played 25, 50-cent blinds, nothing crazy. And then we kind of we started with like $5 and stuff like that, and then we increased it. But as I got better and stuff like that, and my friends got better, we started upping it, and then we upped it to 50, and now I'm really just doing $100 binds at 50 a $5 ones.
Got it.
And, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, are you working outside of poker?
I'm not right now. I'm in school, but I did work before, and I worked all the way up until summer before I left for college. But as of now, really, poker is the main income.
How much longer do you have in school?
I'm a freshman.
Oh shit, you just started school? Okay. All right, cool. But you want to finish school? Like, is school a priority?
I want to finish school. I want to get a degree. I want to be safe with it. But I definitely, after I graduate, I want to kind of like hopefully take poker to the next step.
Yeah, I mean, I think poker's really good for that, for being able to build a bankroll and then parlay that into doing something else, or having it be a side hustle in addition to something else you're doing to generate income. But it could also be a full-time thing when you have a lot less risk and a lot less responsibility, where if poker fails, it doesn't work. Obviously, it's a very high-risk, volatile game. You have to be good, but then you also have to manage your money well. You have to have a very strong mental game, and you have to manage your expenses well and your lifestyle. And there's a lot that goes into, I think, succeeding as a professional poker player. So I'm always cautious about recommending that as like a first thing. I think, doing it as a side hustle first and kind of proving that you can make it is a good thing to do as a transition to potentially going something like full time. And I think for most people watching, poker as a number two makes sense. You're in a little bit of a different spot where you could only really fall forward in the sense that you're so young and you're just starting out on your journey in your career that, like, even if you were to take a shot at poker in college or when you graduate college, the worst case scenario is whatever money you have saved up, you kind of lose, right? Let's say you save up a 5-10 grand bankroll, you bust it. It's not the end of the world, right? You're young enough, you have few enough responsibilities, and it's a small enough amount of money that you can make that back in the real world, and it's not going to affect, impact negatively a lot of the people around you in a negative way. So I think that makes a lot of sense. I think doing it through college makes sense. Ideally, you're going to have a way that you can play poker and not monetize your friendships. I think that's also a good way to find a thing out of. Like, obviously, if you're playing with your friends, you want to win. It's a zero-sum game, so you have to sink or swim. You have to try and win. But, like, looking at networking a poker game with your friends as a business plan is probably not that sustainable, because you're basically just going to be like hustling your friends out of their college money. So, finding like home games or preferably like local casino games that you can play in, and that would be like a good step for your business plan. That's pretty important.
Well, that brings me to my first question, and it's I'm only 19 and I can't be exposed to that kind of game yet. I can't go to the casinos. I can't kind of do that stuff. But I know I'm not legally able to, but like, what could I do in my free time to kind of study the game, so by the time I get to 21, hopefully I'll be very knowledgeable? Yeah,
that's a good question. I mean, there's multiple avenues, right? There's and it also depends on like budget as well. So obviously you want to be mindful of expenses, but books, videos are great. I think things like YouTube are kind of like infotainment. Like you can learn, but it's not necessarily structured. It's kind of just meant for entertainment as well as learning. And it's also not necessarily linear and structured. So something like a course might be an option, but start with a book, exhaust all the free resources and like the low end fruit paid resources. And then definitely be working with things like, like poker programs. Those things are probably more native to you. You're probably tech savvy. So like it's probably more fluent for you to work with something like a poker program. So figure out which one kind of plays to your strengths and where you're comfortable, and really use that as part of your study habits. And those are some things you could do for free, and then graduate into, like a course or something like that. And I would do that more when you're transitioning from, your local games to like finding a home game that you could play in, or playing online, or playing in a casino game. Then it would make more sense to use some of those profits you garner to reinvest back into yourself and take something like a course where, the games and stakes you're playing are significant enough that you're going to make that money back. So I kind of look at it like a business plan, like start small, start free, and then build up from there. But another really good thing you could do that I did in college and really throughout my career is just leveraging the power of like a network and really learning with other people and having other people that are like pushing you to get better and hold you accountable. And so like one of the things, you want to play to your strengths, and one of the things you have a lot of is time. When you're younger, you have a lot of time. You have fewer commitments and claims on your time and fewer responsibilities than you'll ever have in the future. And so that's something to leverage to get ahead. And so you can spend that extra time building a network and connecting with other people and studying with other people and like really finding other friends in your poker network, in your school, that are very driven and excited and like committed to learning. Maybe start a poker club. All these things are things that you can do within your local community, or find local home games and go there. I wouldn't necessarily recommend playing in home games as a business plan, because there's a lot that goes into it. The rate could be high, it could be sketchy, they might not pay you. There's a lot of complications, but definitely could be a good place for networking, at least to meet other people. So those are all things you can do, I think, locally, or drive to a local tournament at whatever, at a casino, and meet other people. Definitely things that I think would help. But I also think like outside of poker too, like one other thing is like so one of the poker's not the only way that you can find a side hustle to generate income. And like the more income you can generate from even doing other side hustle sort of things, the more that you can put that money into poker or to build your bankroll, right? So your bankroll doesn't only have to be built from poker. So I think you can get creative and potentially build it doing other things. Now we live in a world where like you can leverage your skills online to a global audience. So if you're great at something, you can build an audience. If you you have a really unique skill, you could freelance and you can just DM people and say, hey, I can do this thing for you and do it for free, and then help them. And then maybe that turns into a paid gig, right? If you have a unique skill that could help someone in a business to do something that they're desiring, that could position you really well. Or you can just do like hustles. You can, sell things that people have on eBay and take a percentage. Like, I would love if someone did that for me. It'd be cool, like it would save me time and they would make money and I would make a cut of money that I wouldn't otherwise make. Like, it's a win-win, right? So there's all these sorts of like hustles I feel like you can do. You got to find one that works for you. But those are all things you can do to make extra cash that you can then put into poker as well, right? So it doesn't only have to come from poker. Don't be so like in the box.
Okay. So we're talking about bankroll and stuff now. How important, like when you were through college and whatnot, and you kind of made money, did you take like a certain percentage of what you earned and put that strictly towards poker? Like you couldn't spend anything else but like, you know what I mean?
I mean, that's like what I've learned throughout my career by making mistakes and doing things the wrong way. And that's frankly like now what I teach, because I've been in poker 18 years and I've made $1 million when I was 19 and lost it when I was 20. So I've learned those things the hard way. And so then I'm like, oh, well, hey, let me build systems. Let me figure out like how to do this the right way and optimize my bankroll and manage it properly. So yes, that would be an ideal best practice. And I think it's like instilling the right habits is very important, because it's harder to unlearn things and then relearn them. Especially there's like a positive feedback loop in a weird, perverse way to managing your money incorrectly, because what ends up happening is you're playing bigger than you should play. And so that dopamine that hits when you have a huge score that you shouldn't have had because you shouldn't have been taking that much risk is really addicting in a negative way, like a gambler's high, right? Like you put it all on black and you win, and then you're like, boom, I want to do that again, right? I never ever gambled, but my point is that when you take shots in poker with large amounts of money, it's like stimulating. It's more exciting than being fiscally responsible, right? That's why people go on leverage when they're investing in trading, because they want those immediate results, right? So managing your money correctly is sort of boring, because you're never going to win or lose more than whatever the number is, 5% of your bankroll in a given day. And that's kind of slow and insignificant, as it should be, so that you can manage your money properly over time and not get wrecked. So instilling those best practices now are super important. And I have content about that at consciouspoker.com about the bankroll management system I use. And of course, in our academy, we talk a lot about that too. But there's some free content available on consciouspoker.com. But that's like one of the main things that I focus on with clients is, like figuring out how that's all going to integrate. So yeah, super important.
Okay. Do you mind if we take a step back to like when you first started and you first kind of like got into it?
Yeah, I mean, so I'm happy to share my story, but I mean, obviously the poker landscape was a lot different, so that's something to keep in mind. Poker was booming in the U.S. Chris Moneymaker just won the main event, and I got invited to a friend's house to play poker. Like, home games were a big thing. Everyone was playing. It was like the cool thing to do, and I won my first time playing, so that got me hooked into the home game scene. I was 16 in high school. I started playing all the local home games. Like, I started playing with the people that were a grade above me because they kind of played bigger and they were like better players. And so I got to like move up sort of in limits. I played at Indian casinos. I started playing online, did all that in high school and just did very well. I read, like, there weren't many books available. There were no training sites. There was no software. There were no HUDs. There was no poker schools. There was no courses to buy. Like, none of that existed. First of all, those things didn't really exist to begin with because the internet wasn't where it is today. But at the other time, poker wasn't where it is today. There were no software. There was nothing. So I just had to learn with friends and through experience and struggling and trial and error. In a way, it was cool because poker was a little bit more pure of a game because nobody had these solvers and there was no like easy way to learn where you can fast track your learning through a course, for example, or a book. You had to sort of figure it out. And so that kind of meant that the intrinsically better poker players just won more because there was no other way for, worse players to study to get better than the better players. They had to kind of spend 5 years figuring it out. And so I think that favored my natural learning style a lot better because I learned through experience and I'm a very, very quick learner. So that allowed me to get ahead of the curve faster. But now I think, a better way to stay ahead of the curve or even get ahead of the curve now might be different than what I did in the beginning. Of course, you need to play, you need to get a lot of experience, but you can also study your way to get a lot better through learning theory that you couldn't really do when I was just starting. So that's one distinction. Another distinction is that, poker was legal in the US when I started playing. So anyone could play online at an international scale from anywhere in the world. There were no siloed markets. Poker was, you could play online in any state. Anyone from any state could play against anyone from any other state or anyone in the world, frankly, for that matter. And so there was just constant access to 24/7 amazing games with high liquidity, and it just was an amazing poker ecosystem to be a part of. So, it was a different time. If I look back at the player I was, 17 years ago, 16 years ago, even when I first turned pro, I was better than the competition. I was definitely, I would say, well ahead of the curve, but I was, compared by today's standards, I was very bad. But everyone else was very bad. So the whole thing is always being ahead of the curve, and the curve always is changing and evolving, and you always kind of have to stay on top. Yeah.
Okay. So I have like a couple questions that kind of lead into each other. So
yeah, sure.
One is, did you get help, or like who helped you? How did you really? Because like I mean, I know you did it on your own, but there had to have been some kind of help in that, right? The sacrifices. What were some sacrifices you had to make, and what was like? So if you went out, were you like, how did you expose yourself basically? Like, were you doing more cash games, more tournaments? Like, how did you kind of get into how did you kind of make a name for yourself in that sense?
Yeah, okay, cool. So 3 questions. First, guys, if you're in chat too and you have questions, drop them in the chat. I have the chat open over here on my other monitor. I will pick some cool questions and try and lace those into our conversation as well. I definitely want this to be interactive from the viewers too. Okay, so good question. Sacrifices. Was that the first one? Sacrifices, and then help. Sacrifices. Finding my niche. Yeah. So, help. Like, my parents were always supportive of me. That was super cool. Even though poker was very esoteric and niche, like a lot less mainstream than it is today. They were always supportive. That was very cool. And then I had a social circle of friends that one guy in particular, or a few people within our group that were very determined to play poker seriously, whereas most other people just kind of played for fun. They just kind of did it to dick around and have fun with the guys after school or on weekends or maybe whatever, play and drink and have pizza. But for us, it was we were very serious. So I found that one other guy or those couple other people that really wanted to take poker seriously, and so that was, I would say, the help, the support and the help. That was super cool. And then little bit later on in my career, when I turned pro when I was 18, so this was 2 years into my career, I went to a tournament, and this will kind of tie into the third question about making a name for myself and whatever. I started to travel to the main tournaments. So I went with a friend of mine who had won a seat and he was going on his own, and he won a seat, so he had a hotel room, and he's like, well, you can just stay in my room for free. And I was friends with him, so I was like, sure. So I paid for my own flight, and I went to the Bahamas, and then while I was there, I qualified for like the main event, right? So I got to play the main event of the Bahamas. I did bust on day one. I think actually Johnny Bax busted me. This was like, back in the day, he was like a huge player online. But shortly after, I went to a tournament I was playing online. I qualified for a tournament in Aruba, and I went to a tournament in Aruba. It was a World Poker Tour, and I got 8th. So I made the final table, and it was like televised, and I made $40K, and there was a ton of money. I mean, it's always a lot of money, but at the time it was life changing, and so that like kind of gave me a bankroll to play online. But I mean, I did have a bankroll at this time, but like that was just a lot of liquidity right away. And then like I guess sacrifices. So I'll come back to the making a name for myself question, but the sacrifices thing I guess was just like that was kind of a lot more clear. Whereas like other people, even in college, my first year or in high school, like, Christmas break, for example, in high school, like my entire Christmas break was spent playing poker. So other people would like go to ski or go to the mountains, or they would like do something with friends, or like, they would watch football, or they would like do all these things. And like, for me, it was just like me and one other guy just dedicated our whole break to like playing poker. Like that's all we did. Weekends, all we did was play poker. After school, I would read whatever books were available, study poker, play home game with friends. Like I just dedicated my whole free time in life to poker. And college was the same. I was even skipping school to play poker. Not that I would say that's a great idea, but like that's where I was at. I wanted to compete at the highest levels and drop out of school and play poker, and I realized something had to give, and so I chose poker because I realized, well, I could always come back to school a year later and be broke and in the same spot as everyone else, but if I give this poker thing a try and it works, I could really change my life, right? So that's the direction I took. So basically everything was a sacrifice for poker, and I think if you want to compete, I mean, if you want to just make whatever, if you want to just make money as a side hustle playing poker, you're going to have to make some sacrifices, like maybe all the TV time you were going to watch, you dedicate to studying. Depends how much money you want to win, but if you want to be a winning player, you got to be in the top 5 or 10%. Very hard to do, so you're going to have to make some sacrifices. But if you want to be, compete at highest levels and, travel the world and play poker full time, you're going to have to make a lot of sacrifices. That's kind of like being, an elite competitive athlete. And you have to think about it like in that vein. So yeah, hope that helps.
Yeah, I felt myself because I like I said before, off camera we were talking, and I said I was watching your How to Become a Poker Pro video. You have 2 of them, I think, and I was sitting in my dorm and watching it, and I remember you talking about when you were sitting by the pool at your school, and you kind of like had an epiphany.
Yep.
And you were like, look, all these people are walking around studying, going to class, and you're kind of there sitting by the pool studying poker. And I literally in that moment, I kind of just connected it back to me because I'm basically in the same boat you were. I'm spending most of my time playing. I'm kind of, which isn't really a good thing that I'm kind of spending all my time doing this and not really focusing more on school, but I see something in myself, and I don't know, and it's great that we're doing this here, is like kind of get an idea of how to do it. But I think age is a big thing, and it's very restricting at this point because I gotta wait. I mean, I just gotta wait it out. I can't really go and like really test how really good I am, which kind of stinks. And that's why I was gonna segue into online and how important is online compared to live. What do you like better? What's more profitable? Is there a different kind of strategy for each one? I know online's a lot faster, but live is like kind of expose yourself a little bit more live. Like how
Definitely.
is that?
Yeah, I mean, multiple questions in one, but yes, there's a different strategy. Let's start there. So I always tell my clients, but clients always come to me and they're like, hey, I play live cash games and live tournaments, and I play online tournaments, and then I'm playing some sit and goes, and I want to travel to poker tournaments, and like they're kind of all over the place. And what I tell them is, look, that's fine. Everything's fine, right? It's like, choose your own adventure. But if you tell me you have a super specific goal, maybe that goal is I want to make $5,000 a month, right? Or maybe your goal is like, look, I'm well off and I just want to play because my goal is to final table and I play for the competition. Fine. Those are two sort of separate goals. But something's got to give. And when you play online poker versus live poker, the way to think about it that I always tell clients is like, this is a different format of poker in the same way that if you're a tennis player and you play on clay court or grass, it's a different format of tennis. Or if you're a singer and you're on Broadway versus a pop star, it's a different format of singing. And typically people that excel at one, even at the very highest levels, they might be able to do the other one. But like Andrea Bocelli doesn't sing pop. Like Katy Perry doesn't sing opera. Like they just don't. Could they? Probably. Like Katy Perry would be better at opera than me. Fuck. But like they don't do that. So like even in the poker world, like the elite high stakes tournament players, like I'm not saying they can't play cash games. They do. And some of the best play both, and that's fine. And sure, just like, you know, Djokovic could win on grass and clay and whatever. But like 99% of people don't do that. Like they just don't. They have one format of poker that they excel in, that they focus on, that they go all in on, and they make, you mentioned sacrifice, they make sacrifices because they want to be the best at that one thing. So yes, the strategy is different. I'm not going to get into why or how. Like, I mean, that's kind of beyond the scope of the call, but yes, it's definitely different. And so for you, that's like, hey, I want to travel and I want to make money and I want to like enjoy the social element of live poker. I don't know how important that is, but like, you know, if you want to travel and make money, like live poker is a lot better of a vehicle. You asked about opportunity. Almost for sure, the local live game you play is going to be softer than an online game you play. And I would actually go on to venture to say, and I've done a lot of, I've played both formats. I've done a lot of coaching with both formats. I've seen hands from people that play all different stakes games live all around the world and online all around the world, frankly. I mean, I have a client in Denmark and Finland and, you know, they play online and live. So I see all of these different things. And I would say that, like, if you could beat, like, a 2-5 game live, right, like $2, $5 no-limit cash game with a $500 buy-in, that's probably equivalent to, like, 25 cent, 50 cent online. Maybe 50 cent a dollar, something like that. So the ease of the 2-5 game is probably greater than the ease of the 50 cent dollar game. So, yeah, like, you're definitely going to have more money per hour and a better unit win rate in a live cash game. No question. I think for you, that's where you should focus. That's what I would do if I was starting out right now. I would, unless you're like an engineering, super linear, mathematical like mind that only loves numbers and theory and like equities and ranges and stuff, like that is like the only way you think about poker, which is not most people, then I would play live. If you're that other type of person, the super engineering, linear, like space engineer mind, fine, play online. That's probably going to suit your learning style better. Most people are not like that.
Is that, so in live, is it more, and you don't have to get too specific, but is it more kind of learning the math and odds and all that stuff, or is it more of a gut feeling for you personally?
Well, you need to know both, right? So like there's this huge debate in poker, like, you know, do you use like game theory or not, or do you use intuition? And it's like, that's not how to look at it. Like the best players are doing both, right? So the best players all know the game theory, right? Like nobody that like, I don't say nobody, but like people at the top that are elite players, they all know the theory. They know like, hey, I'm supposed to bet this hand in this spot and I'm supposed to choose a large sizing because of these factors, right? They know the game tree and that rabbit hole of game theory, right? But the best players, what they have that distinguishes them from the great players, what the super elite players, I think personally have, is they know when to deviate from that game theory because of these other external circumstances like the psychology or the mood, the energy, the history, the situation specifically that's happening right now in this moment that makes some external factor supersede what they should do on paper. And so the best players are not choosing between their logic and their intuition. They're understanding the logic, and then they're articulating that further with intuition, and then they're combining those two things to make the best decision possible. So that's how I approach poker, but I think that's a very important marriage of thought to have when you're playing live poker, because live poker is a game of people played with cards, whereas online poker is more a game of cards because there's not really that much of a people element. But I think there's more skill in a lot of ways in a live game because there's more variables at play from which you can use to make decisions. Excuse me.
Do you ever like study? So say like if you're about to enter a tournament, do you ever study, say, other players? I mean, I know you played with some of the best in the world, but like as these new players are coming up, you kind of gotta. I mean, are you going to tournaments and playing your game, or are you kind of studying before and you're saying like, oh, this guy might play, like kind of studying their ranges and whatnot, and like this guy might play this in this position?
Well,
you ever study like?
Of course, yeah, I study. Of course. Well, I coach often too, so that keeps me sharp. But every time I go play, I mean, I posted on Instagram. I played a few times the past month. I study. So after the game, I come home. I run equity calculations on Poker Cruncher. I might put something through a solver and go through and see what the Nash equilibrium is or the game theory optimal strategy. I have friends that I call that I super respect their game, and we'll talk for an hour. When I was playing in a like a high stakes private game for the past year, after every single game before the next game, I would do these things. I would talk probably an hour and a half. I would write down during the game 15 hands. Our games would go 12 hours or so. So, we had a long time to write down significant hands. I'd write down all those hands. I would talk to them, talk to friends about these hands and discuss them and really break down all the strategy. And I would come up with individual player adjustments. I would, while I'm on the treadmill on a sprint, I would be thinking about, I put my mind to a mental challenge and be thinking about how I'm going to be adjusting to the players that I'm playing against in real time. And if I get a big hand in this spot, I'm going to fast play it or slow play it or why, or am I going to be bluffing in this spot or not, or how am I going to make adjustments to my game? I'm always thinking about those things. I'm going on the Hustler tomorrow. By the way, guys, I check out my Twitter and Instagram. I put out an announcement. I'm going on the Hustler tomorrow, playing the 25, 50, 100 game. And there's an opportunity to win $1,000 prize on my Twitter and Instagram. So check out my Twitter and Instagram for the most recent posts, and you can participate in the giveaway. So super cool. Excited to go. But yeah, even just going to the Hustler tomorrow, it's like, hey, who's the lineup? Do I know these people? And no, obviously you have to make a real time decision because if one player is to your left versus that same player being to your right, your strategy against that player is going to change. So I'm mindful of the real time adjustments I have to make in the moment, but I go in with a game plan. Maybe you study the players if that's possible. Most of the time you can't do that because there's not live streams from the players you're playing against. So that's just only an option for the Hustler. But, anything that's available to you to gain an edge that's fair and ethical. Yeah, of course.
And that all just connects back to the dedication part of it, right? Just like that you're just 24/7, coming home, studying, waking up, just kind of repeating it. And I mean, that's just awesome.
I was. I'm not anymore. That's not a fair statement, but I was for a decade. Yeah, I remember the first time I took a break from poker. I remember the first time I left my laptop at home. It was 4 years after I'd started playing. I was one of the biggest winners 2007 online. I won $400K in a week playing on Full Tilt, and I was like, okay, I'm going to take a vacation. I left my laptop at home. I went to the Gold Coast of Australia. I was living in Melbourne at the time, so I went to the Gold Coast of Australia with a friend of mine, and she was like, you could come, but you can't bring your laptop. Otherwise, you're going to be playing poker the whole time. So I left my laptop at home, and that was the first time I wasn't 24/7 immersed in poker. But the cool thing is, that was when I was 19. I started playing when I was 16, so maybe that's 3 years into my career. But you can do that dedication of 24/7 when you're presumably not married, you don't have kids, you don't have a house, you don't have a mortgage, you don't have a dog, you don't have any responsibility. You don't, so you're always going to have more responsibility as your life progresses, almost always. I mean, most people go forward in terms of responsibility, not that it's a good thing necessarily, but it's just the way life evolves. So you can afford to dedicate 24/7 to your life to poker now or to something else. And so I would do that. Yeah, I would enjoy my college years and make connections and learn about a lot of things if I could go back. But I would also, I think, finding a side hustle to make money, whether it's poker or, finding a way to help someone that has money to save them time is usually a good way to make money. That's something I would do.
Right. Okay. you ever at like a low of lows and you kind of had to like build back? Did you ever have any thoughts of quitting during this? Like how was that like?
Holy shit! I mean, many times. Like, if you're not prepared to have moments where, you question yourself, you think you're a failure, you wonder if this is the right career for you, you wonder if you made a mistake, you wonder if you're good at poker. If you're not like prepared to have many moments when you feel that way and you have to, pick yourself up or the people around you have to pick you up, then poker's definitely not for you. That is almost 100%. I've had many of those moments in my life. I don't want to bore everyone with all of them, but I mean, I have a post on my blog on consciouspoker.com that I wrote in a YouTube video called How I Lost $1 Million Playing Poker, and I talk about this very candidly. So it's called How I Lost $1 Million Playing Poker. It's on consciouspoker.com. It's on my YouTube. So just like, you can that's a cool video to watch for people that are like really want to see, a little bit of the roller coaster of what it's like. I think I really open up and share like, hey, this is when I was on top of the world. It was the 6th biggest winner in the world in 2007. I won the biggest tournament in online poker history that year. And so, I traveling around, I went to 10 countries, whatever, played all the biggest tournaments. And then, a year or 2 years later, I was 20 and I just got wrecked. I just, ego got in the way. I got, stopped studying as much, and obviously luck had a part of it, but I was largely my own worst enemy, and things went bad, and I lost a lot of money. So I mean, and then I had to learn all these lessons the hard way, and then kind of climb back up. I think it was a really good thing to happen to me when I was only 20, and it was it was a lot of money, it was $1 million, but like it didn't happen later in life if like I had I made those mistakes when I'm older, and there was more at stake, and I had a family and all these other things. I was still on my own, and so I learned these like timeless, super important principles. And I think the key is that like every time you're down, you have to get a little bit stronger and you have to learn something from it. If you're not doing that, then it's going to be really, really hard, because the next time you're going to feel like, you're diving deeper into a hole, whereas you want to feel like you're diving less deep because, hey, I was already here and I picked myself back up. So that should give you confidence. Or I was here and I learned something. So this time I'm going to do something different that make this situation better than the time before. And if you can do that, then you're building forward momentum even in those down times. But poker is a very hard job, and someone in the chat asked like why going pro isn't for everyone. It's not that it's not for anyone, everyone. It's that it's only for a very select, small, like minority. And if you're unsure of whether it's for you, it's probably not for you. That's kind of just like one way to understand it. If you're debating going pro, it should be one of those things that's like, there's absolutely, like when I was thinking about it, there was like absolutely nothing in the world that was going to stop me from playing at the highest levels in poker. Like I was just so sure that this was the only thing that I was going to do at this moment in my life, that like there wasn't even a question in my mind. You know what I mean? And so like you have to have that absolute extreme like fortitude and certainty, because poker's going to challenge you many, many, many times. It's a very hard way to make an easy living. There's a lot of risks. It's people don't respond well to negativity. They don't play well when they're losing. They don't manage their money correctly. If you have any vice, like, gambling, sports betting, alcohol, women, like you're just drawing dead. There's just so many ways that you cannot, you get cheated. There's so many ways that you cannot make it. So it's tough. And then also the other thing is like, you're playing a zero-sum game, which is a challenge to do for a long period of time. And you're always trading your time for money too. So those are all challenging aspects of poker. Now, poker could be amazing. I loved, when I was playing full time and that was all I was doing in life. I loved those periods of my life. It's like, the best. I look back and I think like, these are, I love my life right now too, but I think those are like some of the golden years of my life that I think about writing a book about my life, or, producing a movie or something. Like I want to tell the story of those years, because it was like an incredible story that I was one of the few people in the world that got to live that story. And like, it was just so amazing, and I wouldn't trade it for the whole world. But at the same time, like, I think it's a young person's game largely if you're going to go full time. Now, I think poker as a number 2 could be great. Like poker as a side hustle to supplement your job, your life, as a positive, healthy outlet. And it's something you're going to do 20 hours a week anyway. You play 2-3 times a week with, in your local casino, you're going to do it anyway. You're buying in $1,000, $500 anyway. You might as well turn it into a profitable side hustle where you're making $2, $3, $5 grand a month. That to me is the sweet spot for 90% of people. So that's how I kind of think about that relationship. Poker's great to play. It's not great to have to play.
Right. Where it's like if you really love it and you're passionate for it and you're making money at the same time, that's kind of the goal. Like enough money to live, as you obviously proved in your early days.
Well, you want enough money to be above the bullshit. Enough money to live is a hard way to make an easy living. So it's like, yes, but it's stressful. Live comfortably, right? Because if you're just living and like getting by, it's pretty stressful because your expenses are coming from your bankroll. And then if you lose, not only is your bankroll being depleted because you're spending money because you have to live, right? You spend whatever, 2, 3, 5, 10K a month. I don't know what whoever's watching expenses are, but you have those expenses that are fixed. They're not going down, or maybe they go down a little bit if you really downsize your life, but that's obviously not ideal either. So, maybe you're spending a couple grand, $5 grand a month, and then you lose in poker. You're going to have months where you lose, no matter how good you are. It's just inevitable, right? It's math. It's just not going to deny math. So then you lose 3, 4, 5, 10 grand a month spending, and then you lose 3, 4, 5, 10 grand a month playing, and then you have to play well the next month when you're going to lose another 5 grand spending. And can you afford to lose the next month playing? And are you going to play your A game in that environment? It's very hard to do that. It's very stressful. It's a lot. So ideally you'd have, and this is kind of where I look for clients to be, is like they have, poker's like discretionary, where they have money that's like it's like investing in a startup, money they can afford to lose. And it's like, if they lose, it doesn't matter because they're not relying on poker, because they have this business thing over here that they're doing well in, and then poker's just kind of the side hustle. Now for you, you're obviously in a different spot. You're 19, you're young. A lot of people aren't in that spot if they're 35. It's a different equation, right? So you're at the point in your life where you can trade a lot of your time because you have it and you have no responsibility. So you're the vice, the how I would think about it if I was you would be different than how I'd think about it if I was maybe 3/4 the people watching, right? So it's like, it's a different equation. That's why poker is super individual.
Right. And getting back into kind of just the money and like kind of just being kind of responsible with that bankroll. Like for example, if you're going out to play cash games and whatnot, are you setting a time limit? Are you setting like a profit margin? Like kind of how is that going on with cash games in specific? Because I know tournaments are more of a risk because you put more money on the line to eventually win a bigger pot.
Yeah, tournaments are definitely more risk. They're more asymmetric. I have a video and a blog post on consciouspoker.com. Also a video called How to Manage Your Bankroll Like a Pro. And I think it's a blog post on Conscious Poker. It's also a video on the YouTube about this subject of tournaments are great for asymmetry, where you can risk a little and win a lot. You can make 100 times your money. You buy in 1,000, you can make 100,000 in a tournament, right? You can't do that in a cash game. It's just not possible. So tournaments have that asymmetric upside, which is super cool. And so I think that for a small portion of your bankroll makes a lot of sense. Whereas the bread and butter, if you look at the math, is a lot better for cash games. We go deep into this in our Alex Academy program, where like we kind of break down for people like the exact variance they can expect in a tournament versus a cash game. You could go on the Conscious Poker YouTube and you can look at how to use a poker variance calculator, and you could watch this video that literally breaks down like the math of just how insanely high variance tournaments are. It reminds me a lot of investing in startups, which I've been focused on over the past year or two. And it's just one of those things where like it really is a numbers game. You could be the best tournament player in the world or the best startup investor, but if you don't invest in 50 startups or 100 startups at least and play 50 tournaments or 100 tournaments, you're not going to reach that long run. You're not going to have that big enough sample size to allow your skill edge to manifest over the luck. Whereas in cash games, it's easier because you could quit at any time. So you're not forced to play until only 10% of the people cash. Like in a cash game, like there could be 5 winners in a night out of 9 people, right? Whereas in a tournament, there's only going to be 10 winners out of 100, just the math. So it's like there's so much more luck involved in that format of poker that I think cash games are a better bread and butter. And yeah, as far as like, should you quit or not during any one individual given session, that's a little bit more in the weeds. And it's kind of like a session by session basis, but it depends on like how much money's at stake, how big your bankroll is, and also the mental game too, right? Like, will this win psychologically put you back into a positive state of mind so that you can stop that losing streak that you're on and then start to compound that winning? Like, maybe that one win could do that. And if you quit this game now, you lock up that psychological, positive feedback loop, whereas you're stopping that negative feedback loop. So what is that worth? That's an intangible. It's hard to quantify, right? So there's all these other things that you have to be aware of, and you have to really be self-aware, which is, sort of the underlying theme of conscious poker, right? To really be aware of these sorts of things to play your best game.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, you basically just hit it head on there.
Awesome.
When it comes to, and this is a little bit more specific, you don't have to answer if we don't have time, but I know running hot is a big part of the game, but in tournaments, is it really just mostly playing hands at the right time in the right position? Because I've watched countless videos on tournaments, WPT, EPT, WSOP. It's like kind of the same people are getting to the table every time. It's like they're great players, but I mean, does running hot really, like, and for both cash games and tournament, is that like a big part, or is that kind of a smaller part?
Well, I mean, it's a hard question because it depends on the time frame with which you're analyzing the results. So that's the truth, right? So like the longer you extrapolate that time sample, the more that skill is going to play a dominant role in the results. But the thing is that long run, and again, this is why I encourage people to look at the blog on Conscious Poker or how to use a poker variance calculator on our Conscious Poker YouTube. Like the sample size it takes in tournaments is a lot bigger than most people think. They're not aware of just how insane the variance is. And one of the things about variance, and I'm not discrediting the people that are successful, but one of the things that is true about variance is that even if there were no skill involved in poker, right? Even if you just had a professional, not a professional, but even if you just had a tournament with it, which was entirely based on luck. Let's say you had 100 people and you played 25 tournaments, and the whole tournament was just like you pick the number 1 or 2, and there's going to be a winner of that tournament, right? Like eventually, of 100 people, someone would have picked number 1 or 2 correctly and to progress through the rounds to win that tournament. And if you did 50 of those tournaments, maybe the same person would win twice, right? That's not even an impossible distribution to happen. That's actually quite probable that one person would get an outlier result. That's within a normal sample, that there are outlier results within a normal distribution. It's called variance. So you can see that in a game when there's only luck. But if there's a game where there's also luck plus skill, and yeah, the person has a little bit of an edge, maybe a 10% edge, but like, is that 10% edge the reason why they, you've seen them at the final table 3 times? Like, I mean, maybe, but it's also obviously a lot of luck in that small sample. And the same is true for like win streaks in poker. Like, you see someone win for 3 months in a row on the Hustler. Like, are they good? Sure, probably. But like, they could have lost for 2 months in a row too, right? Like, and so those things are normal. Those things happen. Those things are part of poker. And the interesting thing is that, when this player, let's say like a good player goes and wins for 3 months on the Hustler, they're the best in the world, right? And then, if they go and lose, like, oh, they're not that good, right? So the response to this is to judge the results, to judge the process, to judge the person's ability by their results. That's very common. Whereas, in reality, you have to judge it by the process. But, it's very hard to look objectively at these things and to kind of separate the outcome from the decision. And, it's also one of those things where poker's a unique phenomenon where in order to be able to do that, to have that ability to separate those results, you have to have the ability to see objectively what the best play is. But to be good enough to see the objective best play, you have to be an elite player. So it's hard to kind of have that unless you're good enough. And if you're good enough, you don't, it doesn't matter as much because you're already on that level. So yeah, it's hard to kind of to do. And that's why poker's such a unique game, because it's like, even within the poker community, some people think that good players aren't as good as they are, or some people think that average players are better than they are. And it's that's what makes poker go round.
Right. Yeah, I mean, it's just, I mean, I'm getting so much just from sitting here. I mean,
awesome, buddy.
Going through everything, really.
Yeah, I mean, this is what I do, man. I like this a lot, and I like coaching people too. So it's very fun. It's been like really rewarding in my career because I've been in poker 18 years, and it's like it's cool to play and climb my own mountain, but it's also cool to like help. I remember when I probably seem old to you because I'm 35, but I remember when I was your age. It wasn't that long ago that it would have been cool. Like if I could, I always thought if I could pay it forward, I would. So I'm super happy to do this, man. This is super cool. I hope that something helped you or anyone watching on their journey because that would mean a lot to me. So awesome.
It really has been just awesome. I'm trying to digest everything. Probably gonna come back, rewatch.
Well, it's recorded, right? So that's you can watch it at any time. That's the good thing.
Anytime I want. But just one more thing. I mean, I don't know how much time we have.
Yeah, we'll take one more question. I'll take real quick before the last one. I'm going to give chat a chance to potentially drop in their questions. And while you guys are here too, just tomorrow at 4:00, I'm on the Hustler. Super excited playing 25, 50, 100 on my Instagram and my Twitter. There's a chance to win a $1,000 value giveaway. So join that, support, check it out, tell a friend. Appreciate your guys' support. I'm super excited to go on there. I'm going to try and shoot a vlog where I kind of document my experience playing at the Hustler and then put all of the most significant, interesting hands on my Hand of the Day show for my YouTube. I'm going to try and do that. So be sure to subscribe to the channel. Turn on notifications. That'll probably come out depending on how fast my team and I can get it done with Christmas and everything, this week, next week. So excited for that too, guys. And otherwise, just stay in touch at consciouspoker.com. I'll let you guys know when subscribe to our newsletter. It's totally free. We have like 2 pieces of content that go out a week. Just poker tips, strategy, mindset, bankroll, tournaments, cash games, like the whole gambit to help people on their poker journey. That's just free at consciouspoker.com. And anywhere you can opt in anywhere, and you'll get notified about YouTube lives and giveaways, more. So stay tuned for that. All right, buddy. That's all for the plugs. That's all I got. What's any of you guys questions in chat? Let me know. Someone's correcting me and telling me it's 5:00, not 4:00. I don't know. Check my Twitter or Instagram. You'll see. And all right, Jake, what's up, man?
Yeah, so I just have one more thing. So just to kind of close it off here,
Yep.
Could you give me, say, 3 steps to kind of continue? And I know I'm young and I still have time, but could you sum together 3 steps really quickly on, like, basically 3 things I can do to kind of make it to where you are and what I can practice and goals maybe and stuff like that? What is the best advice? Because I need to kind of just grind something. I need to kind of look towards something.
Well,
overall, it doesn't have to be specific, but
man, it sounds like you're telling me what you should do with your life. That's a good question. I guess I'll try and think about the first thing is like try, the most important thing I think is obviously enjoy the journey, enjoy your life. I know, and I'm mentoring someone else in college right now too, and he's an A type personality. He's like super interested in like trying to figure out what to do and where's he going to fit in and what's he going to do with life and shit like that. And I know that's tempting and I'm was in that same spot, but really figure out, try a lot of things and really figure out get awareness of what you're really good at. Like that's what you need to figure out, right? You need to figure out that you need to go all in on your strengths, but you need to be aware of what those strengths are. And so like if the world is, if you have a hammer, you want to really look for nails. And if you have a drill, you want to look for screws, right? So like depending on what your superpower is and what you're really, really good at, and everyone has some sort of superpower. I really believe that like everyone has a skill that is valuable to the market that they can use to produce wealth and build and do impactful things in the world. But the key is like, a lot of people aren't aware of what that skill is or how to make that skill work in the marketplace. And so that's the challenge. I think that's really the game. So I would actually look up wealth dynamics. I would actually look this up. This like really helped me. I wish I found this earlier in life. Wealth dynamics is super cool. And it's basically this principle that there's like 8 ways to kind of build wealth in life. And it depends on like what sort of type of person you are. There's like a quiz you can take and whatever. I know it sounds kind of like a Myers-Briggs personality test or like I'm an ENFJ, for example. I'm a creator in wealth dynamics, but like, this was super helpful for me, basically to like just like kind of understand myself and my skills better, and then like understand the types of people that I need around me to build wealth. And so that was like super helpful. So I would really do that. I would probably start meditating. I wish I did that earlier. I started maybe 7 years ago. I wish I started in college. I think that really helps for focus and clarity and self-awareness. And I think self-awareness is like the macro skill you need to help build all the other skills, right? If you're more self-aware, you're more conscious, you have a better idea of understanding what your superpowers are, and then you have a better idea of figuring out where you can make an impact in society and the world. And so I think meditation really helps for that. So like those are the two things I would really do. I would network, meet a lot of people. I would try a lot of things. I would figure out what I love, what I'm good at, and what can make money, the intersection of those things, and also what the world needs. That's called Ikigai. The Japanese have a saying for that. I would find what's at the intersection of those 4 things, and I would spend a lot of time getting really fucking good at that one thing.
Awesome. Just awesome.
Cool, man. I hope this helps. Where are you, by the way? You told me where you were when we chatted on Instagram, but I forgot like where.
I am in North Wales, Pennsylvania, so it's about
That's right.
20 minutes east of Philadelphia, yeah.
Okay, that's a super cool area. I might be in Philly at some point. If I am, like, you see me there, hit me up. We'll get a coffee or something. Cool, man. This was fun. Guys, I'll see you tomorrow. Stay tuned on Instagram, Twitter, and on YouTube. I'll see you guys tomorrow at The Hustler. Thanks for everyone's support. We'll do this again soon. If you guys want to be on the stream and you think you have a good candidate and you have something interesting to talk about, DM me on Instagram or Twitter. Be careful of people scamming or impersonating. I only have one account. It's Alec Torelli. Other people are impersonating me, so don't get scammed. Don't do dumb shit. Don't give them your money. And hit me up, and we might do this again soon. This was really cool. I enjoyed this, and hope this was valuable, not just to Jake, but everyone watching. So thanks for everyone's support, and Jake, we'll stay in touch. I'll see you guys soon.
Thank you.
All right, man. End of the stream.